What's up, meta nerds? Today's video is going to be all about the NR-N99 Persuader class droid enforcer, or as we like to call it, the Corporate Alliance tank droid, or the Snail Tank. I think it's important to point out that we need to give this tank a lot of credit, because it does something nearly impossible, and that is drive fear into the hearts of its enemies, while still looking like a frickin' snail. But jokes aside, this horrifying and very capable machine was manufactured by the Techno Union and put into use by the Corporate Alliance. And like we've seen with the Hailfire and the Dwarf Spider droid, the Snail Tank was also used by a big evil corporation in order to put down its opposition in the Outer Rim. Whenever a bunch of space hippies got all uppity and said that you shouldn't destroy entire planets just to harvest their resources, or work people to death just because they happen to be born on the Outer Rim, the Corporate Alliance would then send in its Persuader class droid enforcer. At least they made it look like a cute snail for the hippies' kids. And in order to help the NR-N99's persuasive argument, its creators made sure that it had access to all kinds of weapons. This way, the snail droid could confidently approach enemies at a drum circle or a full-on riot. Its standard armament included ion cannons and heavy repeating blasters, but it had a modular design on each side of the tracks, which allowed you to upgrade it with shock rifles, concussion missile launchers, 48 thermal detonators, 12 concussion missiles, 4 homing missiles, and 4 dumbfire torpedoes. With this wide range of options, the snail droid could make sure that it was always prepared. What's more is to swap these things out wasn't really that complicated, as the whole tank had a pretty simple design. Basically, it has one huge motor in the middle, with a track that goes over that. On each side of the main track, there are additional smaller wheels, each with their own track. This allowed it to grab onto surfaces at different angles. And right above those tracks was the interchangeable weapons platform. On the very top of the tank, there were a whole bunch of antennae and sensors that stuck out, most notably the two very snail-like photoreceptor eyes. These other antennae allowed the tank to stay in contact with the battlefield commander, because we don't have any reports of it having any long-term memory capabilities. Now, all this stuff is amazing, but it did have a couple flaws. The main problem was that it wasn't very quick at turning left and right. And to make this worse, it had a much larger profile from the side. Combine that with the fact that all of its guns faced directly forward, and a lot of enemies realized that you couldn't face the snail tank straight on. Instead, clone troopers realized that they should just flank it, and focus their fire on trying to take out its large engine. But if you're a Wookiee, you just hop in your wooden helicopter, YOLO it, and then dive into the beach for a nice swim. But the CIS knew that a weak point was on the side of the snail droid, so they made sure that when they were deployed, they were always in tight groups. This made sure that the outer snails protect all of the inner snails. The CIS often paired 2 snail droids with an OG-9 homing spider droid, while frequently pairing up the Hailfire droid with 3 snail tanks. Which brings me to a kind of funny point. You might be thinking, how was it that a snail droid could keep up with the lightning-fast Hailfire tank? But really, according to the source material, you should be asking, how does that super slow Hailfire tank keep up with the speedy snail? Because according to the Clone Wars campaign guide in Wikipedia, the top speed of the Hailfire tank is only 45 kilometers per hour, or 27 miles per hour, compared to the snail tank with a top speed of 100 kilometers per hour and 62 miles per hour. Which makes two problems very comically clear. This would make the snail tank more than twice as fast as the Hailfire, but it would also mean that the Hailfire would be so slow that it would get honked at in most residential neighborhoods. The only thing I can think of is that this was a typo. It wasn't supposed to be 45 kilometers per hour, but rather 45 miles per hour. But even though that's more believable, that still makes the snail tank the faster of the two. But who knows, maybe that was just the CIS's way of getting in the clone army's head, making them terrified of a super fast and super deadly snail. Whatever the purpose of this, the CIS was definitely happy with their droid tank, and they used it throughout the entire Clone Wars, but sadly we don't see any of them surviving past the droid decommission at the end of the war. So that's the end of their history, but there are definitely a ton of cool facts and behind the scenes stuff to talk about. I thought it might be helpful if we compare the snail droid to the M1 Abrams. The Abrams top speed is 45 miles an hour, which I think makes the argument stronger that the Hailfire's top speed was really supposed to be 45 miles per hour as well. Compared to the snail tank's 62 miles an hour, we gotta give more credit to the NR-N99. And I thought it'd be interesting to look at the different weights. The Abrams comes in at 62 tons, where the snail tank is only 14.4 tons, which of course explains why it might be faster. A couple of features that we didn't talk about was that it's waterproof, like we see on Kashyyyk, and that B1 units could ride along the side. So in a way, it worked as a kind of small troop transport. And perhaps the most awesome part about the snail droid was how it differed in the ways that it dealt with civilian populations. If a battle happened to take place around a city, spider droids and Hailfire tanks would do the best they could to not bump into things, to not just recklessly crash into buildings, because it might end up hurting the droid more than it did the structure. But the snail droid developed a pretty bad reputation among civilians. You see, its method was a little bit different. It would often hit 60 miles an hour and just fly straight through residences, buildings, businesses, whatever stood in the way between the snail droid and its enemy. And now a couple cool behind the scenes facts. Check out this video. It's a low-render version of the Battle of Geonosis, something that the animators used to plan out the scenes. And you can see that a lot of this made it into the film, except for one notable addition. Originally, the snail tank was set to make its debut at the very start of the Clone Wars during the Battle of Geonosis. How awesome would that have been? Well, that's it for the NR-N99 Persuader Class Droid Enforcer, Corporate Alliance Tank / Snail Tank. If you liked the video, go ahead and leave a like down below, and be sure to vote in the poll so you can pick our next video. And if you want to study Star Wars even further, there's tons of free sites online like Wikipedia, but there's also tons of great books. If you want to check some of those out, go ahead and click on the link in our description. The link is to one book in particular, but feel free to browse around. And any purchase that you make through that link gives us a small percentage of the sale, so that we can help Meta Nerds grow to the point that one day, maybe we could do this full time, which would just be an absolute dream come true. But be sure to subscribe if you haven't. We're making videos like this every single day. And remember the wise words that Master Yoda always said.
Always protect the inner snail, you must.
And now for some bloopers while you think about what to watch next. And focus their fire on taking out its large Chan. While the Hailfire tank got 3, what the hell? A cup of features. We can get you a whole cup of features down there. Oh boy.